everyone, and welcome to another deep dive. Today, we're going to be taking a close look at the FCRA in India. If your charitable organization is hoping to get funding from international donors, this is a must listen. But even if you're not directly involved in that world, I think you'll find this deep dive super interesting, just to see how this whole system works. So FCRA stands for the Foreign Contribution Regulation Act. And to help us break it all down, we have an expert joining us. Welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me. I'm happy to be here.
All right, so let's jump right in. Can you give us a quick overview of what exactly the FCRA is all about?
Yeah, so basically the FCRA is a law that was passed back in 2010. And it basically lays out all the rules for how individuals and organizations in India can receive and use money from outside the country. We're talking about donations, grants, any kind of financial assistance.
It's all about making sure those funds are used responsibly, right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
It's there to prevent those funds from being used in ways that could harm India's national interest or security.
That makes a lot of sense. So it's not just about avoiding trouble. It sounds like it's also about creating opportunities for organizations to do some really amazing work.
That's a great point, yeah. And, when an organization gets registered under FCRA, it can really open up a lot of doors for them. They get access to a much wider pool of funding. They build credibility with donors. And that all translates to more resources for impactful projects.
Makes sense. It's like a stamp of approval, kind of.
You got it.
Now, this might seem like a basic question, but I'm curious, who exactly needs to register under FCRA? Is it like every single organization in India?
No, not at all. It's mainly for charitable organizations, like trusts, societies, those registered under Section 8 of the Companies Act.
Mm-hmm.
Basically, if you're a nonprofit and you want to receive funding from abroad, then FCRA is definitely on your radar.
So like a for-profit company looking for investment from overseas wouldn't need to worry about this?
Nope, not at all.
Okay, that's helpful. Now, when it comes to actually getting registered, are there different ways to go about it?
Yeah, there are two main paths. There's the regular registration, and then there's the prior permission route.
So what's the difference?
Well, the regular registration is for organizations that have been operating for at least 3 years, and they have a pretty solid track record.
So that's kind of like the standard path.
Yeah, you could say that, but then you have the prior permission option, which is more for newer organizations or even for established ones that have a very specific project in mind. They basically get permission on a case-by-case basis.
Gotcha. So it's like getting pre-approved for a particular project.
Yeah, that's a good way to think about it.
Now, I have a question that I'm sure a lot of our listeners are probably wondering about. What about donations from NRIs, non-resident Indians? Does that fall under FCRA?
That's a great question, and it can be a little tricky. So the simple answer is It depends. It depends on the NRI's citizenship status and where exactly the money is coming from.
Oh, okay. So there are some nuances there.
Yeah, for sure. So let's say an NRI holds an Indian passport, right? In that case, their donation would be considered a domestic contribution. It's just like they were donating from within India.
So no FCRA needed in that scenario.
Exactly.
But I imagine it gets a bit more complicated if they don't have an Indian passport.
Yeah, if they're a person of Indian origin, a PIO, or an overseas citizen of India, an OCI, and they don't have that Indian passport, then their donation is treated as foreign funding. And boom, FCRA registration becomes a requirement.
So even if they have strong ties to India, that passport is the deciding factor.
It's crucial.
And what if, let's say an NRI is an Indian citizen, but the money is coming from a foreign bank account?
Well, in that case, it could still be considered a foreign contribution. It's always best to err on the side of caution.
So even something like a small donation through a crowdfunding campaign could potentially trigger FCRA requirements?
You got it. It's really important for organizations to be super diligent, especially when it comes to those NRI donations.
Okay, great advice. So let's say an organization knows for sure they need to be FCRA compliant. What's the very first step they need to take? Where do they even begin?
Well, the most important thing is setting up a dedicated bank account. And not just any bank account. It has to be a specific FCRA account at the State Bank of India's New Delhi main branch.
Wow, so there's no flexibility there. It has to be that specific branch.
Yeah, that's right. The government really wants to have that clear oversight of all the incoming foreign funds.
That makes sense. And I'm guessing there's a lot of paperwork involved too, right?
Oh, there's definitely paperwork. You'll need your organization's registration certificate, activity reports, audited financial statements, PAN card, and you'll need a board resolution authorizing the whole application process.
It sounds pretty thorough.
It is. It is. And if you're going for that prior permission route, you'll need even more detailed documentation, like a commitment letter from your foreign donor outlining the amount they're contributing and exactly what the funds will be used for. And then a really detailed project proposal.
So you really have to make your case, lay it all out there.
Transparency is key.
Yeah.
It shows that you've thought everything through, you're organized, and you're committed to using those funds effectively.
Makes sense. Now, once you have all your paperwork in order, what happens next?
Well, the good news is that everything's online these days. So you head over to the Ministry of Home Affairs portal, fill out the right form, FC3A for regular registration, FC3B for prior permission, pay the fees online, and then you hit submit.
And then the waiting game begins.
Pretty much. The Ministry of Home Affairs reviews your application, and if everything's in order, you'll get your FCRA registration.
And that registration's good for, like, forever, right?
Not quite. It's actually valid for 5 years.
Oh, right.
So mark your calendars because you'll need to renew it before it expires.
So it's not a set it and forget it kind of thing.
Definitely not. And of course, you absolutely have to keep meticulous records throughout the entire process. Every single foreign contribution, donor details, the amount, the date, the purpose, everything needs to be documented.
It's like keeping a financial diary, but just for foreign funds.
Yeah, exactly. And, the Ministry of Home Affairs can audit your records at any time, so you always want to be prepared.
So that definitely adds a layer of accountability.
For sure. It just reinforces the importance of transparency and making sure those foreign funds are being used for their intended purpose.
Okay, so we've covered who needs to register, the types of registration, even the application process. But before we go any further, I think we should take a quick break. We'll be right back to continue this deep dive into the world of FCRA in India. Welcome back to our deep dive on FCRA in India. Now, before the break, we talked about all the steps to actually get registered. But I'm thinking there's got to be more to it than just checking those boxes and calling it a day.
Oh, for sure, for sure. FCRA compliance, it's an ongoing thing. And it's not just about, avoiding getting in trouble. It's really about maximizing those opportunities, using those foreign funds to create a real impact.
So where should organizations even start? Like, what are some practical tips to make this whole process smoother?
Well, first off, be proactive. Don't just register and then assume you're good to go forever, right?
Because things change, don't they?
Yeah. The rules, the regulations, they can get updated, so make sure you're staying on top of all that. The Ministry of Home Affairs website, that's your go-to for all the latest updates.
So do your homework.
Exactly. And, this might seem obvious, but file those annual returns on time.
Like clockwork.
No excuses.
Yeah, it's kind of like filing your taxes. You can't just ignore it.
Exactly. And speaking of staying organized, record keeping is super important. Every single foreign contribution, you got to document everything.
So we're talking spreadsheets, maybe some fancy software.
Yeah, you got it. Donor details, amount, the date, the purpose, how you're using the funds. It's all about that transparency, having a clear paper trail.
Like a financial story, but for foreign funds.
I like that. And remember, the Ministry of Home Affairs, they can audit your records whenever they want.
Got to be ready for that knock on the door.
Exactly. But, beyond the paperwork, beyond just the compliance stuff, there's also that human element, right?
People?
Yeah, those relationships with your donors.
Yeah.
It's so important to cultivate those, communicate with them, keep them updated on your progress.
Show them what their money's doing.
Exactly. Share those impact stories. Be open to feedback. Make them feel like they're a part of something bigger.
Yeah, like they're not just a checkbook, they're actually involved.
Right. And, you're not in this alone. There are experts out there, consultants, legal professionals who really understand this whole FCRA world.
So don't be afraid to ask for help.
Exactly. Get that support system in place.
All right, so we've got the proactive steps, the compliance checklist, the relationship building. But now I'm curious about the bigger picture. How can organizations actually, maximize the impact of these foreign funds?
That's where it gets really exciting. Because FCRA compliance, it's not just about, ticking boxes. It's about opening those doors to real, lasting change in India.
Using that money to make a real difference.
Exactly. You got to think strategically. How can you use these resources to really amplify your mission? Look for collaborations, maybe with international organizations. Explore new, innovative approaches. Don't be afraid to dream big.
Think outside the box.
You got it. Now, when you think about foreign contributions in India, where do you see them having the biggest impact?
Well, healthcare definitely comes to mind. I mean, there are so many challenges in providing quality healthcare, especially in those rural underserved areas.
Yeah, absolutely. And, foreign funding can play a huge role there. Building hospitals, training medical professionals, getting those essential medical supplies out there,
It's about saving lives, improving the well-being of communities.
for sure. And let's not forget about education.
Education, yeah, especially for girls, for children from those marginalized communities.
Providing access to quality education, that can have a ripple effect across generations.
Yeah, it can break that cycle of poverty, empower people to create a better future.
Exactly. And, speaking of poverty alleviation, there's so much potential there.
For sure.
Think about those microfinance programs, skill development initiatives, projects that create sustainable livelihoods.
Giving people the tools to lift themselves up.
That's the idea. And then, of course, we can't ignore the environmental issues.
Yeah, India faces some serious environmental challenges.
Right, pollution, climate change, all of that. And foreign funding can be a game changer in terms of protecting biodiversity, promoting renewable energy, building that climate resilience.
It's about protecting the planet for future generations.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And let's not forget about disaster relief.
Yeah, when natural disasters hit, that aid can be a lifeline.
Exactly. Providing that emergency relief, rebuilding infrastructure, supporting those communities as they recover.
It's about showing up when people need it most.
For sure. And, these are just a few examples. The possibilities really are endless. The key is to align your projects with what those international donors are looking for, and then really articulate a clear plan.
Show them how you're going to make a difference.
Exactly. Donors want to see those results. They want to know that their money is being used effectively.
So it's not just about having a good cause. It's about making that compelling case.
Absolutely. You got to show them that impact.
Now, it's inspiring to hear about all the good that can be done with FCRA funds, but I think it's also important to talk about, the potential risks and challenges, because it's not always going to be smooth sailing, right?
You're absolutely right. It's important to be realistic. While the benefits of FCRA are huge, you got to go into this with your eyes open.
Aware of the potential pitfalls.
Exactly. And one of the biggest challenges, honestly, is just the sheer complexity of the regulations. It can be overwhelming, especially for smaller organizations.
So many rules to keep track of.
Yeah, and even with the best intentions, you can accidentally slip up, and that can lead to penalties.
Or even losing your FCRA registration.
Exactly. So the stakes are high. Remember, the Ministry of Home Affairs, they're watching. They can audit you at any time.
So, gotta be on your toes.
Absolutely. Dot your I's, cross your T's, all of that. And, another challenge that comes up sometimes is this perception that foreign funding comes with strings attached.
Oh, you mean like hidden agendas or donors trying to influence how the money's used?
Yeah, that's a concern for some organizations. It's so important to really vet your potential donors, make sure your values align.
Do your research.
Exactly. And be willing to walk away if something doesn't feel right.
It's about protecting your organization's independence, staying true to your mission.
Absolutely. And then you also have those practical challenges like dealing with different currencies, international bank transfers.
Oh, yeah. That's got to add a whole other layer of complexity.
It does.
Yeah.
You really need a strong financial team who understands all the ins and outs of FCRA compliance.
So expertise is key.
Absolutely. But, even with all these challenges, I still believe that FCRA is a powerful tool for organizations that are serious about making a difference in India.
The benefits outweigh the risks.
Yeah, as long as you're willing to put in the effort.
Do the work.
Exactly. FCRA, it's not a burden. It's an opportunity.
An opportunity for positive change.
Absolutely.
Okay, so we've talked about a lot, haven't we? I mean, we've gone over the FCRA compliance steps, looked at some of the potential pitfalls, but we've also seen just how powerful this can be, how much good can be done with these foreign funds. So let's bring it back to our listeners now. Imagine for a second that your organization has just received a major foreign contribution. What's the first thing that pops into your head? What are you going to do with that money?
Oh, that's such a great moment, isn't it? It's what all this work is for. Being able to actually use these funds to make a real, tangible difference.
Yeah, it's time to put those plans into action. Now, remember all those areas we talked about earlier? Healthcare, education, poverty alleviation, the environment, disaster relief. They're all crying out for attention, for resources.
And they all offer such incredible opportunities for impact.
Exactly. So if you were in this position, what would your big project be? What would you tackle first?
I want you to think big here. Think bold. What's that one initiative that could create a ripple effect? Something that could really transform lives for the better.
Yeah, something that would leave a lasting legacy.
Right. And the beauty of it is, with FCRA compliance, you've got the framework, the credibility, to go after those ambitious goals.
It's like unlocking a whole new level.
Exactly. And, you don't have to go it alone. There's a whole network out there, experts, consultants, other organizations who've been through this.
So find those mentors, those collaborators.
Absolutely. Build that support system. My final thought for everyone listening is this. Don't let the complexity of FCRA hold you back. See it as a challenge, yes, but also as an incredible opportunity.
A chance to really step up, make a difference on a whole new scale.
Exactly. Use it to fuel your passion, to drive positive change in India.
Beautiful. Well, that brings us to the end of our deep dive into the world of FCRA in India. We've covered a lot of ground today, but hopefully you're walking away feeling informed, maybe even a little inspired.
I hope so. Knowledge is power, right? And with the right information, the right approach, you can unlock the power of foreign contributions and really make a difference.
Keep learning, keep asking questions, and most importantly, keep that passion alive. Maybe someday we'll be featuring your organization's work on a future deep dive.
That would be amazing.
Until then, best of luck on your FCRA journey.
Thanks for listening, everyone.
We'll catch you next time.